moving forward.
Happy New Year, everyone. We're back. I mean, I took quite a hiatus, and I'm happy to say it was worth it. I'm a little well rested, and we're gonna get up to some hijinks here now that we're rested. And I have a very special guest. You know her, love her very well, and she's helping me kind of like start the new year off right because I promised that I would keep talking to our elected officials, and I promised that we would actually do something more than just votes. So submitted for the approval of the after New Year's Society to start our resolutions. Keani Rollins Fernandez.
Aloha and happy 2023, everyone. Lonoi Makahiki.
I think it is going to be a happy 2023. I mean, at least after we get past the accidentally doing 2022 and doodling it into a 3. But I mean, that will start the laughs enough so that way we're like, no, we want this to be a 3 because two was enough. We don't need 2 part 2. But you know what? I got to say before we really get into, the dirt of the new year, if there was any, but to really say, I felt that we kind of, 2022 was like, the year we all had to pierce the membrane to cross the other side and stretch through some really hard things. Election seasons are like that, but it was also after coming back from we finally decided even with where we stood as the world responding to the pandemic that there was really no stopping world from moving forward. So we're all moving forward, and I have to say that even right before Christmas, life seemed more memeable and memorable. It was probably the lowest attendance of Black Friday I'd ever seen, which made me happy because that tells me people were spending time at home with their families. So then we all recharged instead of being consumers. But I gotta say, it feels like it's gonna be a good year. What do you think?
I sure think it is. I have a good feeling about it. There's good energy coming our way. This first week has been quite interesting, which I think will play out throughout the year. So.
Oh, absolutely.
So it'll always be entertaining over here.
Absolutely. Before we get into today's conversation, because I've got some things that I need to ask you. I'd like to ask you, and I think I'm going to ask every council member, representative, even if I get a governor on here, if I'm lucky, crossing fingers. What's your New Year's resolution?
Ooh, what is it? I recently read something that I really spoke to my now, which is, having that resolution is really goal oriented and not life changing and shifting and elevating. So I kind of took that to heart and am not making one New Year's resolution, but I think continuing to be the best version of myself that 2023 can be, and going in that direction.
Right on.
Sorry, that was a cop-out.
No, that's great. I dig constant evolution. Me, I'm kind of at I partition things out. That's my little neurodivergent feature. So I have to. So but I get your jam, but I feel for me that it's sometimes it's a day by day, sometimes it's a quarterly type of thing. I think this year that I might get in more than just one, but I agree with the sense of don't try to make the year itself about trying to do something in existentially life changing, shattering, etc., because that's way too much for your lifespan. That should be the goal of your lifespan, but not why put that stress on yourself, to over adjust so quickly, when the small changes lead to that good over the time change. So no, I dig it. I dig it. I like the way you're going, which that shows promise. We'll see how much promise we see in all the other elected officials we meet up with this year. Because I haven't said the word election enough, and I'm sure that everybody at home listening is like, yeah, and then we did the Christmas episode, which was Comic-Con, but then like now we got to go right back to work. Yes, kids, we had to go right back to work. Them's the rules, them's the breaks. New Year's, new you, new work to do. So with that being said, election. Wailuku is
Elections have consequences.
yes, elections have consequences, and we kind of have a consequence here, which I'm going to ask multiple things about this, but so we have a council seat that, as I had been talking with our lovely listeners at home, there's some room for error, not in like the crazy conspiracy sense, but more in the lazy bureaucracy sense of we had a very tight race between two individuals, which also had enough margin of error between who could win, provided a certain amount of ballots were properly accounted for and or cured. So it is now being heard on a much bigger level, and we are about to find out from the Supreme Court. But the 19th is the day where they start talking about it?
Yes, January 19th at 2 o'clock. Oral arguments will begin at the Hawaii Supreme Court.
So, so then that's the interesting thing. So, like, outside of, the 30 people involved that are backing Noelani on this, like, there's quite a few hundred that are involved that, like, whether they wanted to be public about their vote or not, or just see how the system played out, there's still a whole community that should be able to support this. So, like, what's the procedure in at least, like, showing up in force when we have to, like, engage off island? Is there like any procedure for this? Have we got any groups that just like all hop on a plane together or take the commuter in the morning, or like if we all just like bribe our way onto a plane with Krispy Kreme on the Dark 30 flight, will they take us?
Yeah, so, and this isn't a problem unique to Maui either, or Maui County. The race for the Senate seat in Nanakuli Waianae side, who's the seat now held by, again, continuing to be held by Senator Maile Shinobukuro, was after curing some of the ballots, was only a 44 vote difference. They were on the news, as well as the Wailuku Council race. And so this affects everyone. And so, when it comes to preventing voter disenfranchisement, I think this is, something that perhaps Common Cause and other government watchdog entities can, support, and other political organizations, that often participate at the legislature, perhaps like Kalahui, Hawaii. They're based on Oahu, and so those on Oahu, since they're there, can help support. And then, those from Maui County or other islands that want to be sure that their county clerks are taking care of their election process correctly. They can also help support this, because that's what this lawsuit is about, is making sure that everyone's vote is counted. Everyone's voice is heard, because every vote matters and is important, and it should be counted.
Right on. So at that point, I see that like we have enough appeal that we should be reaching out to any cousins we got on the other side of the channel there that can show up if we can't show up. But
Mm-hmm.
to the bigger point, like, I mean, I'm glad that this is being heard because, like, I mean, I really think by the numbers she has a chance. I mean, let's look at the facts here. Like, how much of a spread was there between the two of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yep.
what was that number again?
The vote difference out of about 52,000 votes was 513.
And how
And
many how many ballots were unaccounted for?
there was a total of 812. And after um, uh, curing some of the ballots, so correcting some of the signature deficiencies, there was about 706 left by the deadline. But there
Wow.
were a lot of people who didn't receive the notification in time to, fix whatever signature problem there was.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for refreshing me. Like, I tried to, like, over the Christmas break, kind of drink some of that away, but I guess that there wasn't enough eggnog to do so. So, it wasn't living as rent free as it should have. I'll give you credit there that, like, I definitely need to be jogging again into the arena. So, with that being said, I mean, it's weird, because I'm getting the vibe from the other side that it doesn't make sense, but like it sure as hell makes sense to me. Like, that's enough of a percentage difference to really cause, like, that's way too close. Like, we had runoffs. I mean, look at what happened, on the other side of the country. Like, and this has happened before in other places
Mm-hmm.
around the country, and I'm really disappointed at how slow it was handled, because I gotta say, I mean, it's pretty obvious that this should have been heard as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But we don't have a process like, like Georgia's, where if none of the candidates received 50% of the vote, no matter how close, it was just like a 0.1 or 2% vote difference, or percentage difference, that it automatically triggers a special election or a runoff. None of our counties have anything like that in place. In 2018, there was another kind of slow to react and respond kind of process between the race for Honolulu County Council, and that was between Trevor Ozawa and Tommy Waters. And that was a 77 vote difference, I believe, if I remember correctly. But they have district voting, unlike Maui County, where we have voting in the entire county is at large for all council races. And there was ballots that were collected from the airport after 7 p.m., which is the deadline for the clerks to have received all the ballots. And so the Supreme Court in that case ordered oral arguments to be had, and the courts found in favor of Tommy Waters and ordered a re-election. And that whole process was a really long process. And thankfully, the council in that instance appointed someone temporary from the district so that that district wasn't left with no representation. Because it, again, the Georgia process happens immediately, and they have representation, I believe, within a month and a half.
Yeah, no, it's a lot quicker on the continent. So, like, okay, so then
Mm-hmm.
here's the thing that I gotta start asking then is, like, if this could take a while, like, like Hawaiian time while, like, we're gonna be at kind of a really weird place with the numbers on the council. So, like, I mean, if we don't get one of these interims like you're talking about, like, how does that play out on, like, with the way that the decks kind of stack? Because I'm seeing that there's a very even number of how people lean, if you know what I mean. And it kind of like, I feel like we're going to, if we don't have an interim or at least a voice of reason, or maybe this would encourage them to an expedited process. It seems to me that like either there's two things that can occur. Either nothing happens at all because it's like deadlocked on everything, or hell to be pay on one side or the other the day that a coup occurs to sway one person, or one person magically doesn't make it up to vote, or is like, you know, you get one of those little coup quorums that occur. And I've seen some crazy stuff from here to Timbuktu on how things like that can happen. So like, what's from your position, what's your pits and perils that like you face now?
Yeah, so on the council, we only have 8, and there's a reason that we have odd numbers, so that we're able to not come to an even split when voting. And for the council members that we currently have, those that were kind of working more together, it's split down the middle for those candidates. And so it's kind of ideologically the same, 4 on one side, 4 on the other side. Although we were able to come together, and for those that have been working to control tourism, to control unfettered development, we compromised, and in the spirit of moving forward together and working together and finding common ground, the 4 of us teamed up with the other 4 and voted in Tasha Kama to be our council chair.
Right on. So, I mean, we'll get to that in a moment. Like, this seems like, I mean, there's enough fair play going on here, but like, there's something that I've been meaning to bring up that like I really think we should interject in, because it's a good time to bring up, because like, whether or not you guys be getting along, there are speed bumps that are good for some and bad for others. And I'd like to bring up we got we got a new mayor now. Like, and I'm I'm impartial until I see action. And the opportunities have been great to see action, but we really just started, so like I'm not worried about that right now. But previous mayor Victorino, who'd have thought, like, would silently just walk out, like one last deadly fart and make some vetoes.
Yeah, we just recently learned that former Mayor Victorino vetoed 2 really important bills that one, took a long time, the cultural overlay bill. And that had to go, because it has to do with land use, had to go through all the planning commissions, all the advisory committees to the planning commissions, and then it came back to council for final approval. We had a public hearing. There was a lot of working together on the language, and that was the bill that on December 31st was vetoed. And the second bill that was vetoed is the bill that would require an owner-occupied deed restriction on, I believe, 25% of the houses that are built that's supposed to be affordable to our residents.
Well, so wait, so that means that like everybody gets priority, doesn't matter where you're from, even though like you trying to get off the street in your own hometown. Like, I mean, like I'm not trying to sound xenophobic. I'm not trying to sound like, I mean, I mean, I do have a tendency to sway a little more to the right in conversation, but Um, I'm not like, I mean, for as much as everything has its own space and each state has its own systems, I don't really think that in the sense of what is played out on our people for more than a century is now fair game to anybody, including the like. It almost feels to me that we're even being redlined out of the opportunity to get what's finally like, okay, we're gonna make this affordable, but now anybody can fight for this. So like, and then it's not safe for the economy. So then it's like, what happens if like some like super Midwest rural family from like Ohio decides, oh, we're gonna we're gonna find out what it's like to chance some children, and then they're gonna go out there, you know, and they're going to end up in an affordable house, but then they won't have the affordable job because their skill set doesn't match anything that's in town, or they don't know the hustle of working concierge that is day by day to even like make a real buck or two, let alone be a triple threat to get on a stage or on a mic to then pull as a second job and work at a hot sauce factory on the side. Like, I don't think like the continental population is aware. Like, I think it's the same like disillusion that people get once they finally make it to New York and go, I'm gonna be somebody, ma. And it's like, no, that place will just eat you alive. And I feel that like Hawaii has that same kind of power. And I'm like, wouldn't we be just like also upsetting our economy by inserting people who really couldn't afford our economy then?
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. So this would ensure that our residents would get to be in these houses that are being built as they're intended for.
I mean, and especially out of like with the Airbnb like over speculator generation, because like, I mean, you know, I'm seeing like some of these new like corporate little middlemen that are coming out of places like, you know, Texas and New Mexico now, that like they have the job infrastructure, and since inflation hasn't hit these regions as hard, these guys have surplus cash, and then they're building six-figure wealth within 2 to 3 years, which like, it's great somebody's getting the American dream, but like we sure aren't. So why it like, you know, on a scale of like anybody is technically too poor to move to Hawaii right now. So, but like, I mean, what's the threshold? Like, how poor do you have to be? Like, or how like much in despair do you have to be? Because I could probably think of like at least 30 states right now that like if people were crazy slash dumb enough slash ballsy enough to just like, oh, we're just gonna just show up on a bus one day that crosses the sea and we're magically there, and we're now Maui or Big Islands or Oahu's problem.
Right, and you know, so like capitalism and fair, the you know,
It's not a very free market. It's kind of a
free.
freemium
Yes,
market.
the free market, right? It's
Yeah.
not so free, and a lot of what we've seen is the investment properties making the market, the housing market, just, you know, skyrocket. And so having an owner occupied deed restriction in perpetuity would help to control that market. It almost makes a separate market for those that have a deed restriction requiring it to always be owner occupied and would never become a short-term rental or an investment property or a vacant property. We see a lot of those too. It's just absentee owners, and that doesn't help our residents. Meanwhile, you know, many of our residents are living in their cars or their beaches.
Yeah. So like, I mean, you know, I'm still confused as to like how this has gone. Like, you know, there's quite a few debacles going on in our system on the island that like you can kind of laugh away, but like this is one of them that you can't. Like, I don't see anything positive coming up right now when we talk about, you know, it never does. When you're talking about land and you're talking about living under a roof or at least having a place that's warm to sleep in, you know, it's really disconcerting to think that like there's a fair amount of our working population that can't even afford to sleep in a car right now, and they're pulling two jobs.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why this bill is really important, and we worked hard to get it passed in our last term, and it was also vetoed on December 31st. And so for both of these bills, we have 30 calendar days to take it up as a council and consider overriding the veto.
So wait. You're saying there's still time. So we got like how many days from now? So like you're saying we got like 2.5, 3 weeks to solve this problem if we could get off our asses?
January 29th.
So January 29th. How many meetings in between now and then? Or like how do we make sure that like is there anything that the people can do with this then? Like if we could just So if we all got around to complain about these two and we had to actually how much do we need? Do we need like how much will they allow? Like how long does one of these meetings last? How many bodies do we need in the room? Or do we just need enough loud ass people to make sure they don't adjourn it before we get to say anything? Because that kind of brings me to my last angry man point of the day before we get into how to solve this in a moment. But first, I'm going to take a little break right there and we'll come back after this message.
Moving forward.
We live in a fast-paced world where many people are too busy to sit down and read books or news articles. But thanks to Newsly, you can now listen to the news you wish you had the time to read. By utilizing AI technology, a natural human voice reads you the news, helping you grasp the information faster and more efficiently. Newsly provides the latest news updates 24/7, letting you browse articles from topics you choose. It even has podcasts, including ours. And listeners of Rabbit Holes can get their first 30 days of premium for free, allowing you to enjoy an ad-free experience by using the special promo code in our episode description. So download Newsly today for free on iOS and Android, or visit www.newsly.me so you can stay updated on the things that matter to you.
Moving forward.
So we're back. And before we left, I started getting a little angry because I realized that so you know, to my point of what can we do and why I got angry, how do we escape the possibility of things adjourning early? Because as we saw, first meeting of the year, not much got done. Like, is that like, I mean, who, like, I'm not going to start pointing fingers because everybody would be obvious to tell, like, watching it if anybody bothered to tune in on public access these days. But as someone of a select crowd who tries to tune in when they can, or at least tries to talk story with enough people to find out. So what's the deal with that? How, like, I mean, I understand there was a party going on, but like first day on the job, like why couldn't this meeting continue?
Yeah, so I think there was just a lot of uncertainties and surprises that happened at the meeting. There was some plan of action. I know there was, possibly a hope of not having a council chair, so that having a council chair was a priority. Otherwise, the mayor would need to continue to be our presiding officer over our meetings, and that's just not feasible. So having a council chair was the first order of business, and having staff was a second priority. But as we have had, in previous organizing meetings, we take up the entire agenda, and whatever time it takes us till, that's what time we end.
So wait. So let me stop you right there.
All the items on the agenda.
If it was important enough and there's enough angry people standing around, like they got to sit there till the cows come home.
Absolutely. For under Sunshine Law, HRS Chapter 92, we cannot adjourn a meeting as long as there are people signed up to testify, and we are continuing to do hybrid meetings.
Okay,
And
okay.
so anyone
So-
can testify on Blue Jeans virtually or in person.
All right, so this Blue Jeans app, then it just like takes it like a Zoom thing and records it for you.
Yes.
Right
Yes.
on. Okay, so then I'm gonna have to figure that out proper. All right, just so that way I can test them. But then like, and then showing up on the day. So like, when it comes to showing up on the day, like, should we get there early to make a point? like how early is too early, or is there an earlier point in time that just like puts the fear of God in people because enough angry people will line up? Like I could make
Yeah.
a Disneyland line if necessary.
I think, organizing 101, having a lot of people there, wearing the same colors so that there's that visual representation of unity and, coalition building. And that way, decision makers and others around immediately see what the community is saying without even saying anything, right? That we are here because we want the council to do its job in completing its work. We want the council to override the veto on the cultural overlay bill and the owner-occupied deed restriction bill. And we've had tons of testimony on these two bills already. So I have zero doubt that the community will come out strong again and probably double, triple the amount of people that we had before, because in the last council, we had a majority of people who supported these two bills, and now it's a little bit of a different council. And
So with that being said, like, what's the likelihood of getting an interim before then?
There's a debate right now going on with some of the attorneys on whether our council rules and our county, Maui County Charter would allow for us to have an interim council member. So we might be stuck with a 4-4 until the Supreme Court makes a decision.
Okay, so then, like, if this current iteration of the council, like, I mean, break it to me, Doc. Like, do you see like one or both of these getting the vetoes unvetoed, or how do you feel in this? You do.
I do. I feel very hopeful. In reviewing the votes again for the cultural overlay bill, it was myself, Member Sinensi, who introduced the bill, Member Paulton, Member Johnson. All four of us are still on the council, and Member Tasha Kama also voted for the cultural overlay. So that's 5. Council Member Sugimura voted no. And then we have 2 council members who weren't on the previous council, Council Member Cook and Council Member Uu Hudgens. And it's not clear where either of them stand. And encouraging, now Council Chair Kama to, maintain her vote to support the cultural overlay bill, would be our 5th vote, and we would need 6 for 2/3 majority to override the veto. And so the community would need to make that clear, that they hope that their council members, Cook and Uu Hudgens, would vote to support the override. For the owner-occupied deed restriction bill, former council member Lee voted no, and council member Sugimura was excused for the final vote, but she voted no previously. But again, that leaves 5, and then the 2 unknown positions with Member Cook and Uu Hudgens.
Interesting. I find that that's Wow. Like, I mean, that's so really, it does fall on the people because, I mean, that's what changes the vote. I mean, so
Hmm.
it's like the people from these districts need to show up and tell
Well,
their
and
representatives.
it's countywide. We represent, as council members.
Yeah, because there's
We
no,
represent
yeah,
everyone in the county at large.
everyone voted for these guys. So everyone's
Exactly.
entitled to show up and
Exactly.
tell them, all right, okay. But like, wow. Wow. So this is, so we have until the end of the month. We have, okay, so we have this meeting. Well, then I guess at that point we have enough time. I'm making an event page. All right. So we're going to do that. And I'm going to invite every council member to join said event page that I know is a part of this. So I'm going to put those notes down and make sure to invite you guys. And then we're going to invite everybody on the damn island to show up.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
It's
and that's going to
important.
be,
These bills are that important.
yeah, they are. No,
And-
that is the best, closest thing to a goal at a time, New Year's type of tackle we can do. Yeah, I dig it.
And so the council meeting, the next council meeting, when we adjourned, our organizing meeting was announced to be January 20th. Last week or a few days ago, when Council Chair Kama learned about the lawsuit, she rescheduled the meeting, but she rescheduled it to January 27th. And that's a Friday before January 29th, which is a Sunday. And if we have to recess that meeting and not adjourn, then we lose, as the council, we lose our opportunity to override. And so I would encourage everyone to contact Chair Kama to ask her to schedule it for at least the 25th. And that way we'll have a couple of days if we need to recess the meeting
All right. So like, I'm gonna put down all her contact info everywhere that you can get her, even by smoke signal or water. All right, we're gonna put that. We're gonna put that in the event notes. That's, we're gonna bullet point all this in the show notes, but I think we're just gonna have a hard link to the event so everybody can see it. I'm gonna get that information from you about the apps and the links to them, and then we're going to put those in the event page, and then it's time to ask everybody to show up at a party. Everybody voted, and even if you didn't, well, damn it, you're paying taxes to show up.
Yes.
Right on. So, with that being said, I think I put you through enough madness today. So let's try to escape these crazy thoughts for just a moment. And I'd like to thank you for coming on today, because it means a lot to me that our politicians engage and to be able to open yourself up. It's one thing to be politicking and trying to get a vote. It's another thing to make on your promise and show up and talk to the people. And I feel that like by showing up on our show and being in a place that can be a little more candid than stuffy, regular, everyday vanilla news, and really just talk story, because I am no journalist. I am just a crazy person who has a microphone, because everybody who's crazy has a microphone these days. So why the hell not? No. But all kidding aside, though, we've gone on a crazy journey in 2022. I'm glad that we have politicians that come out and actually want to talk hard numbers and facts and what's going on and how to engage and what's important to them, because like the people need to know in a day and age where we don't have enough connection to what's going on because we're either too hard up on life or we're too sucked into the hustle that we don't have room to breathe for ourselves, so we don't even give it back to our community. So I think that this is our small goal for ourselves this year, is enough room to breathe to think about each other. And I think 2023 is going to provide that for us. So with that, I'd like to know, outside of what's ahead of us in the next 23 days that could happen, what, now that you're in office, do you intend to go after this year? What are things that are important to you beyond these things that we talked about today? Is there something that we should be aware of that is going to take us a little more time and effort, or is there something going on in your specific neck of the woods that you're trying to protect right now?
Oh, there's always a lot going on. So on Molokai, we're still working on our Aina Back initiatives. Huge news. I don't think I can break it quite yet, but regarding our renewable energy co-op, I'll let them announce those big news. And we're having a community meeting on January 17th at 5 p.m. at Michapa'ole to talk about Kawela stream restoration, which hasn't happened yet, and to urge the Commission on Water Resource Management to deny the contested case hearing requests from Gugu Leisure, who's doing business as Molokai Ranch, and Well 17, which continues to be pumped without a permit. And on countywide, in my systems approach in tackling problems, I'm continuing to work on creating a water rate category for hotels and timeshares that would enable the county to charge our tourism industry folks a different rate than residents. Because right now, hotels and resorts pay the exact same rate as residents, and that's absurd. And so I am continuing to work with the Board of Water Supply on how to get this off the ground, and also with the Department of Water Supply. And there's a new director and deputy director. Hopefully they'll be just as excited about this direction as myself and the Board of Water Supply is, and getting that to council in the budget, getting the necessary steps funded so that the tourism industry is truly paying for sharing the profits with our residents, and are actually conserving water and not just using it frivolously. So those are some of the things I'm working on.
You got a pretty big plate ahead of you, but that's good. That tells me, you came prepared. That's a lot more than I could say than some people across this state, and it's definitely a lot more than I could say some of the people who thought they would have gotten elected in the last year. But that's a conversation for another time. Kiani, mahalo for coming on. Mahalo for starting off the year right, and I hope to have you on more this year to get some juicy updates on what's going on in the council so people can hear it straight, especially if they don't make it. But I look forward to collaborating with our politicians this year and making sure that everyone at home takes some time to come out of their cave, or at least get on a phone app just to make a difference in society. Because guess what? Just because you voted doesn't mean it's over. It's time to show up. So mahalo, Kiani, for coming on.
Absolutely. My pleasure. And I look forward to talking with you and your audience again in the near future. Mahalo for having me.
Mahalo.